What's up, guys? I'm Landon from Shoeware, and today we're putting the newest models from Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo's shoe lines with Nike head-to-head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So checking out the box and the price first. The KD14 comes in a pretty simple black box with this player logo on top. And then the Zoom Freak 3s come in an orange box with Giannis's player logo kind of off-centered down in the corner. And then as for pricing, the KDs retail for $150 and the Zoom Freak 3s are $30 cheaper at $120. So a little bit of a price gap, but still two pretty affordable shoe lines. So before I get into the tech specs and the performance, I just want to hit on the design for these first. So starting off with the colorways, today we're checking out the Nike KD14 Lime Glow versus the Zoom Freak 3 in this Nike color scheme. But looking at the design for the KDs first, I think Nike did a better job, or at least they put more into this year's model compared to the KD13 last year. So they added the strap on there, which I am a fan of on basketball shoes. So you do have that added element. And then the wavy pattern on the upper for these is pretty clean, especially, kind of around the heel and the back. And then Nike kind of has that air bubble that shows up on the midsole. So, a pretty clean look. I think that this is like a clear upgrade as far as like the appearance from last year's model. And then switching it over to the Zoom Freak 3s, Nike did add the strap to this year's model that wasn't there last year. So that is going to be an automatic plus for me. But that's really the only change that I liked for these kind of compared to the Zoom Freak 2. So the heel design from last year was nice, and they did take that away. And I don't really love the look of that reverse swoosh on these, the small reverse swoosh on the heel. I think the reverse swoosh that was really nice for the Zoom Freak line came on that first shoe. I mean, that shoe was super tough, but, still not a bad overall look to this new model. Alright, so now getting into the materials and the performance breakdown, I'll start off with the cushioning for both shoes first. So the KD14 features a full-length Air Zoom strobel unit that is stitched directly into the upper, which is going to keep the shoe soft yet responsive. And these do have Cushlon foam in the midsole, which is going to be there to kind of absorb the impact while keeping a comfy feel. So, definitely a soft feel to play in. The cushioning is going to be one of the highlights for this shoe. And then switching over to the Zoom Freak 3s, they did improve on last year's Zoom Freak 2 in this cushioning area. The front half of the shoe is going to be hollowed out under your foot to allow for 2 Zoom Air units in that area. So that's going to be where the softest feel comes from, in the front half of that shoe whenever you're playing in these. You don't really feel it quite as much in the back. And the design is cool though, because you can actually look through the word Air on the side of the shoe, on the side of the midsole, and kind of see those cushion pods at work. So looking at the materials and the support, the KD14 has a multi-layer mesh upper with some added thickness in certain areas to help kind of keep your foot in place. So these really give you a controlled feel whenever you're playing in this shoe. And then the added thickness does kind of let you know that Nike didn't really cut corners whenever they were creating these shoes. So you also had that strap on there that's going to give you a little added lockdown. And then for the Zoom Freak 3, the materials aren't really going to be super high quality, but they still get the job done for the most part. They of course added that strap on there too, so you're going to have that. But as far as support, they did get a little bit worse from the Zoom Freak 2 model. The materials used on the upper just are really more sturdy on that Zoom Freak 2 compared to what they used on the 3 here. But you also have that shark tooth kind of looking design that kind of runs along the outside of the shoe on the midsole that is kind of serving as an outrigger to your foot. So it's going to give you a little added balance and kind of keep your foot from going outside the shoe. So, that part was nice. So to finish off with traction, Nike kept the same general concept from last year's KD13 model and put it on this 14 with those oval patterns on the bottom. And that's going to account for a lot of your side to side or your lateral coverage. So the rest of the pattern kind of handles the front to back movements. And this is one of the better designs, one of the better setups that I've played in this year. They just grip the floor so well. They just allow you to play freely without worrying about slipping or anything like that. And I can't totally say that for the Zoom Freak 3s. While some of the inconsistencies for traction that showed up on last year's second model were fixed, it still wasn't totally resolved. These do have a computer generated traction pattern, and similar to the Kyrie 7s, which kind of use that same thing, I just don't find that setup working super well for me. I guess it's good, but it's definitely not great. But to finish off with sizing, both of these shoes do run true to size. The Zoom Freak 3s might run a little bit on the narrow side, but still a pretty normal fit. So for the final ratings, the KD14 has one of my favorite looks for a basketball shoe that was released this year. The Zoom Freak 3, I can't really tell if I like it more or less than last year's design, but I definitely prefer the KD14 over the 13. And then looking at cushioning, while the Zoom Freak 3s did improve like a little bit from last year, I really only feel that cushion in the forefoot or like the front half of the shoe, which isn't necessarily bad because that is where you spend a lot of time playing like on your foot whenever you're playing ball. But cushioning is arguably the selling point for the KD design, so I'm gonna have to side with them pretty easily here. For materials, both lines did add the strap over the laces, two pretty different uppers, so not really a clear way to lean, so I'm just gonna leave that section as a tie. But for support, even with that outrigger on the Zoom Freak 3, the upper just doesn't really quite feel as solid compared to the KD14s. I mean, you have multiple layers of mesh on the design, they really hold your foot in place well. And then to finish off with the traction, the KDs really assert their dominance here. They have like really great bite. In the Zoom Freak 3s, I just kind of catch myself slipping from time to time. And I don't really think that computer design came out all that great. So that leads to the KD14s winning this performance battle pretty easily. I mean, you have a higher retail price by $30 at play here, but honestly, I think they outperform the Zoom Freak 3s by a lot more than that price. This is one of my favorite shoes to play in right now. I mean, they just don't really lack anything. Great comfort and traction, solid support and materials with a reasonable price. So all of that kind of combines to make this a really solid shoe to play in. But just in case you want a little bit more of an in-depth review on each shoe, we do have individual reviews live where I go a little bit deeper into these models. So, feel free to check that out. And if you're interested in purchasing either one of these shoes, just make sure you check out the links in the description below. But that wraps up this performance battle. Until next review, I'm Landon from Shoeware. Peace.